Chapter 1. For the next year, Miley was forced to take meaningless jobs that usually didn't pay her enough to buy a decent supper, much less allow her to stay in a proper shelter. Sometimes she cleaned toilets for several hours or pulled guts out of the day's catch of fish. While she did these menial tasks, she remembered standing in one of her family's community rice paddies, up to her knees in water. But at least in those fields she had friends and family around her, not strangers who would just as soon kill her for the shoes on her feet as look at her. And the air was fresher too. It didn't always stink like it did here. After slaving away all day without a break, she would have to run to the hovel that she called home, because that was the only place she could go that didn't cost her more money. She had to get there early or all the spaces would be gone. Living the way she was, she knew she would never be able to put together enough money for a trip north back to the land of her parents. She now lived in a crammed dorm room the size of a garage with 22 other people who were in the same predicament as she was. They were starving and homeless too. Twice she'd applied for a job with the U.S. military, but without any English-speaking ability at all, she was turned down both times. She even had trouble with the applications. It wasn't until the spring of 1970, by then she was living in another shack less than a quarter of a mile from downtown Saigon, that Miley finally succumbed to the extreme pressures of simply existing from one day to the next. The sun was high in the skies, and it was hot as she lay on her pallet near the center of the shack, thinking about the same subject that had been on her mind off and on for the last 2 months. What she was thinking about was taking a path that thousands of other young girls exactly like her had taken in the past. She got up and, using a dirty broken mirror hanging in the center of the shack, put on her best face. She had to swallow hard to keep the bile down, and with her spirit nearly broken, she left the shack, hopefully for the last time. Once outside, she stood and reappraised the course of action she was about to embark on. She knew that once she went that way, there was no turning back. That was why when she approached the overdressed woman drinking tea outside the cafe, her hands shook because her body could not contain the amount of her nervousness and turmoil within its small confines. That emotion needed an outlet, and her shaking hands provided it. "Hello, Mama-san. My name be Miley, and I am looking for work," Miley announced while mustering up all the courage she had left in her body. Miley stood nervously in front of the older woman who sat drinking her tea, and to Miley, she looked like a giant toad. "What kind of work are you looking for? I do not need any more girls to wash dishes or make beds," the hard old madame said in a gruff tone. "I want to be a girl that makes love with men's," Miley said boldly, much more convincingly than she felt. Deep down her flesh was crawling with the thought of actually doing this. The rest of the practiced speech disappeared out of her mind as she fought a strong desire to turn and run away. The mere thought of having a man touch her like those boys in school did caused her flesh to crawl. She had often wondered what all the fascination was with the woman's bosoms were. To her they felt just like any other part of her body. They were just like her face and hands. Even so, ever since she grew them 6 years ago, her mother had impressed upon her that she should keep them private. So she had done exactly that. But now she was offering them to whoever had the money to touch them. "You ever been with a man or even a boy before?" the hag asked somewhat callously. It never crossed her mind that some blundering fool had not deflowered this tasty tidbit.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?